Hello, and welcome to the American Songbook Association's Sunday Sessions series. This series is an ongoing fundraiser for our expanding education programs. The American Songbook Association reaches thousands of students nationwide, teaching jazz, musical theater, and the great American Songbook in an effort to preserve and promote these timeless American musical legacies. This programming also includes Cabaret Scenes magazine, the official magazine of the ASA devoted to covering live music in the United States and Europe. We hope that you enjoy each episode of this Sunday Sessions series. We ask that you subscribe to our YouTube channel and that you consider a donation. Every dollar helps us keep the music playing. See the banner at the bottom of your screen for details. Thank you. And now, here is your Sunday Sessions series host, Carolyn Montgomery.
Hi, and welcome to the Sunday Session series. I always start this with a little bit of gratitude, a statement of gratitude, because we started this series almost 2 years ago as an attempt to keep our members and subscribers in touch with their favorite artists. And then when the pandemic lockdown lifted, we were thrilled to get calls and emails asking us to please continue the series, suggesting artists. And many people have suggested our artist today, and I'm absolutely thrilled to have him on. One of the great things about this job as host is that I get to research people that I know everybody that I have interviewed, but not well. And it's really fun to sit down for some concerted hours of reading and watching videos and listening to great music. And one of the things that stood out for me about our guest today is the fact that when you look at his Wikipedia page, and I'm always interested in that, I just am very interested in what's written there. It describes him as an American cabaret singer. Now, usually you don't see that people define themselves specifically by that genre. They will be an actor and a this and a that, but they rarely say specifically cabaret. It's a hard genre. It's a hard genre in which to make a living. And I find that our next guest is a person who has distinguished himself by being consistently and successfully a cabaret artist. I want to play him on, actually, because I found some wonderful video clips. This is Jeff Harnar.
The night is young, the skies are clear, and if you want to go walking, dear, it's delightful, it's delicious, it's de-lovely. I fall in love too easily. I fall in love too fast. I fall in love too terribly hard for love to ever last. Your moonlight on a night in Capri and Cape Cod looking out at the sea. You're all places that leave me breathless, and no wonder you're all the world to me.
Ladies and gentlemen, with my technical difficulties and all, please join me in welcoming Jeff Harnar. How was that for a little teaser?
Oh, that was very sweet. Thank you for all the work you have put into getting ready for this interview.
It was wonderful. It's so much fun. It's really fun to be able to look at clips of you. There are very few shows I haven't seen, but you've worked a lot. And I wasn't very articulate in the way that I described why I was so moved by American cabaret singer. It says American cabaret singer and recording artist, which we're going to discuss today. But I was very moved by that because you have made a career over 40 years of being a club cabaret singer. Yeah, which is
It's crazy.
it's crazy. So let's start at the
It's
beginning.
so spoiler. It's because I can't do anything else.
No. Untrue. Seen you dance, seen you act. You can
Oh
do it
no,
all.
no, not definitely not dance.
Well, you can move. You're a singer who moves. How's that?
Singer who moves well.
There you go. Exactly. So always ask of all my guests, what did you do during the pandemic? How did you spend your pandemic
Ah,
hours?
well, we're on it right now. Thank God for this digital world. I knew nothing about this virtual connectivity,
Mhm.
and it definitely sustained me. So I was able to actually direct several projects. I'm also a director, and I was able to continue directing. And in fact, this month alone, 6 artists that I directed during the pandemic are performing their shows. So I was, alive and well and working during the pandemic. And the other great thing, this was not preset; it just lives here. But I helped the wonderful Tova Feldshuh write her memoir. I mean, when I say help, I was in the virtual writing room with her. It
Yeah.
so happened that Hachette, commissioned her to write Lilyville. um,
Well,
we just began during the pandemic, and we would have written it in a virtual writing room anyway.
sure.
And when I say helped, my role with her was similar to my role as her director, which is just to help make suggestions so that her best voice comes through.
Well, and you've been Tova's director for a long time. I mean, I was going to get into your directing, but you've directed a lot of wonderful
two,
people. Yeah. But Tova,
two wonderful shows, and I'll tell you, any day you're in a rehearsal room with Tova Feldshuh is a masterclass.
yeah,
I learn more than she does. There's no question. And of course, now it's just so thrilling to see her back on Broadway and funny.
it is very exciting. It's really exciting. She looks terrific too, and I know she is.
Terrific.
Let me ask you this: now that I'm just going to go all over the place because you brought up the directing thing. Do you find that directing other artists informs or clarifies your work on stage?
Yes, of course. It's the Oscar Hammerstein lyric, "By your pupils you are taught." It's so I don't keep it as a secret. I am in recovery, and I go to 12-step meetings, and one of the things we do is help other people to achieve their sobriety. And the way that we do that, it's called sponsoring. And the way
Right.
we do it, the reason we do it is because I can't keep what was freely given to me without giving it back to someone else. And I
Mhm.
can't remember the tools unless I'm offering them to someone else and saying, this is a suggestion, this is what works for me. And
Mhm.
it's definitely changed the kind of director that I didn't direct before I got sober, because I would have just been an egocentric taskmaster saying, do it this way, do it that way, it goes
Sure.
here. But now it's more like my job is there to be a guide and to just get the light shining through, because we all have this wonderful God-given light that we just need suggestions.
That is
And
so
so, yes,
interesting.
it forces me to say, well, I can't possibly say to someone, you need to get more specific with the personalization of your lyrics if that's not what I'm asking of myself. So it definitely
Absolutely.
has made me crystallize what tools work for me and why, and it holds me up to them. I have to work harder to. It's a wonderful thing.
It's a wonderful give and take, and your point, that there is no point at life where we stand on a solitary summit and preach. We always have to be receiving lessons and giving lessons, or there's no give and take. Nothing's happening. And we have a lot of students watching this, either live or recorded, because of the ASA's education program. And one of the things I was going to bring up in the interview, but we're there now, so let's do it, is talking a little bit about addiction. Uh, I don't think there's a person on the planet that isn't touched some way by addiction, whether they love somebody.
Hello, if you have a cell phone,
Yeah,
you have been touched by addiction.
well, and that's a very important point, particularly for teenagers now who have never not had a cell phone. And there is something wildly freeing about freeing oneself from an addiction. It is not easy. It is not simple. And as you say, it involves getting to know yourself better than maybe you ever wanted to. And it just makes you a better artist, better director. So that is fascinating and amazing. And congratulations and good
Thank
for
you.
you. Yeah, pretty wonderful.
Yeah,
So,
it's a miracle.
well, every day, an everyday freaking miracle is
Yeah.
beautiful. I
Since,
will,
since you have young people listening, I will just share that my addictions began when I was 19, and I didn't become sober till I was 51. So that was a long time of struggling with an eating disorder, alcoholism, and a drug addiction that finally got me the help that I needed. And through the grace of God, today I am sober 11 years and 8 months, and I do count every day because each day is a miracle.
mhm,
Uh, and each day is the only day I have. It's the only day any of us have. But
that's right.
if I could have figured it out when I was in my teens, coulda, woulda, shoulda. But
Yep.
if there's anything that I might say today that a younger person might hear that would maybe help, I don't know that I could have said anything to my 19-year-old self to help, turn the key in a lock of how I was seeing the world and open my eyes. But if there's anything that I say that might save someone that particular path of struggle, then it has great meaning and purpose for me to be here just for that alone. It's so important.
Absolutely. And also to tell young people that should they have their lives touched by addiction in the form of a parent or somebody who is caring for them, that there is help out there, and and speaking about addiction and understanding that it is a disease, and that that it requires help. It requires getting help and going deep, um, for recovery. And it's quite moving. Wow, we have gone. I love it when this happens because spontaneous is brilliant. I want to talk a little bit about your beginnings. I want to talk about where you were born and brought up.
Well, I was born in Manhattan Beach, California.
Okay.
The
I was
stork
I
read
was
the label wrong. Yes, I worked all my life to get to the other side of the
yeah.
country. Um, but my family moved 5 times while I was growing up, so I have a lot of different hometowns. But the one that I was in from the age of 9 till I was 17 was the Chicago suburbs. So I do think of Chicago particularly as my hometown, though I have been in New York. Oh, wow.
How old were you here?
5 or 6. I was living in Riverside, Connecticut at this point,
There you go.
untouched by time.
Was it your father's job that took you all
Yes.
over the place?
Yeah, my dad was. There was a wonderful program called Mad Men that was about men in PR in the 1960s, and that's what he did.
Uh-huh.
So
Yeah.
when we came to the New York area to live in Riverside, Connecticut, I was 5 years old, and he was working for Lincoln Mercury at the World's Fair,
Right.
which for a child was an extraordinary way to fall in love with New York City. Was
And
to have the World's Fair be the reason we're going into town.
incredible. And how about siblings? Do you have any siblings?
I have an older brother and an older sister.
Okay.
The brothers in Colorado and the sisters back in California.
And were your parents? It looks to me as though your parents were fairly supportive of a potential music career.
Those are not my parents. Those are that's a production of The Music Man. That is the
Oh
first
my
show.
goodness!
Yes,
Yes, it is. Okay.
it's the first show I ever did. It was the year we moved to Chicago, and
Yeah.
at that point I'd already seen my first Broadway show, and I was in love with cast albums. And my mom saw that they were casting The Music Man, and she got me the cast album, and I saw there was a part for a 9-year-old boy, and I got it.
That's
And
nice.
that lucky casting choice, I had all my union cards by the time I was 10 in Chicago, which
Wow.
was quite extraordinary. There just happened to be a talent agent who lived in that community where we did the
Yeah,
music man. Who,
and a bowl. They put a bowl on your head for that photo.
that's
For the,
Bob Harnar, my dad, who cut my hair up to the age of 17.
your father also had a fabulous sense of humor because I remember seeing this, and
Yeah, look at the haircut.
I asked Jeff. I asked him specifically for this one. This
Oh
is
my God.
Who's Dreaming of a White Christmas? The Harners in their
So good.
swimsuits.
This is when we had moved to Michigan. That's how
Yeah.
old I was when we left California. And
Yeah.
this is a pre-Photoshop photo. My dad created this. We were all just sitting on the lawn in the middle of September. And of course, my grandmother back in California was horrified when she got the card. She was like, Robert, what is Jeffrey doing out in his swim trunks in the snow?
In the snow? Well, he's freezing, Mom. Everything. That's wonderful. The pre-Photoshop sense of humor.
Well, and for people who are familiar with cabaret artists and how we promote ourselves, you will see by looking at that Christmas card that my dad has always been my inspiration for how to do marketing.
Yeah.
And I have always loved this particular component of creating my own show, that because that image is going to be your first impression, and as I've heard it said, you only get one chance to make a first impression. So my dad, taught me that you can manipulate the image, you can have a sense of humor, and you can carry a very powerful message, all with the composition of a single image. So I knew that very early, which
it's a boon to have a father in advertising or PR, I would say. Yeah, because those details are very, very important. And
sure are.
As the whole God is in the details business, it really speaks true. And it's that first impression as an artist is very, very important. That first image, that first 8 bars, they're important.
Yes.
So,
yes.
So all of your union cards by the time you're 10, and then tell me about high school. Where
that's where the road got bumpy.
Yeah.
Once my voice changed.
Oh, it was all over the crying.
It sure as a boy soprano, I flourished, but I had the great good fortune of going to a high school with a great performing arts program. It was called New Trier High School in Winnetka, Illinois. And a lot of famous people went through there: Rock Hudson, Charlton Heston, Bruce Dern, Ralph Bellamy, and more recently Liz and Ann Hampton Callaway were contemporaries of mine. In fact, look, there's Liz and there's me. That is Liz on the lower right as La Lune, and that's me being hoisted up there as Haj the poet.
Yeah, you've seen it here, folks. Liz Callaway and Jeff Harnar in high school.
And put the picture back up again. This is so it's a 1,500 seat theater with a 30-piece orchestra and 4 floor mics. That's all we had.
Oh.
So needless to say, Liz Callaway, had no problem with that challenge.
I'm sure you didn't either. Projection. That's when it comes in handy to have a mom who's a voice teacher in Shirley Callaway. Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, wasn't that a gift? Because I got that gift too. Shirley Callaway was a great early mentor for me. And to have a house where you could go and sing around the piano after school with someone who taught you about key changes, taught me how to bend the melodies the second time you do the reprise of a song. She was just a wonderful, wonderful teacher.
Wonderful musician, wonderful soul. And what she understood about music is a lot. And singing. Yeah. I took some lessons from Shirley and really, really. Yeah. So high school ends and you've had it sounds like a wonderful high school experience. And did you know that the stage was for you? Were you sort of myopically headed in that direction?
Yes. I wanted to do something with musical theater, or the music from musical theater was definitely what I wanted to do. My senior year, I directed, every year the students would write, produce, and direct a full-scale musical from scratch. And my senior year, I was the director of that, and I wrote the opening number. And it was, in a 1,500 seat theater with a 30-piece orchestra with Liz Callaway as the lead. It was a good start. It was a really good experience. And then, of course, as I think most teenagers find when they leave high school and go to college, the rug gets for me, the rug got pulled out of me. Because we moved away So
Hmm.
I no longer had that hometown to go home to, and B, because all of a sudden I was being thrust into the best of every school. You
Yeah,
know, all of the students who were, you know, were equally the best in their school. So it was, you know, it was challenging. And
where did you go your freshman year?
I started at SMU, Southern Methodist University in Dallas, Texas, and I chose it vapidly because I was to get out of the Chicago winter.
Yeah, you like the climate.
I chose it because some students that I really admired ahead of me went there, and
Yeah.
so I learned about it, and I learned it was one of the 10 League of Professional Training Schools, and it had one of the top 10 acting program, top 10 singing school, and top 10 dance program,
Right.
and so that's why I chose it. What
Yeah.
I wasn't aware of is that they actively discouraged those of us who tried to intertwine them, because they really thought if you come as an actor, you are an actor. If you come
Yeah.
as a dancer, you are a dancer.
Oh, okay.
So it was challenging, and so after 3 semesters, I worked my way into transferring to New York University.
Okay.
That's where I finished.
That is a big change. That must have been so. That was your introduction. No, it wasn't your introduction to New York. You had been there as a small boy, but how was it coming in as a teenager and as a performer?
Well, I had already, you know, my eating disorder had already begun before I got there. My eating disorder became its worst when I got to NYU, and I actually lasted 6 months. That was in 1979. And my parents had to come and get me, and I was hospitalized at the Cleveland Clinic for 6 weeks to do inpatient treatment, and it didn't stick. So I
Yeah.
limped along with this eating disorder for like 8 more years. It really was unfortunate that
Jeff, was it the pressure of the business? Was it personal? What? Because I'm curious. I am now thrust into the modeling world because my son is a signed
yes.
model, and he's been talking to me about the pressure to stay physically really thin. And he doesn't feel it. It's not something that he's taken on, but he's aware of it in a big way. What was it for you? Was it about performing? Was it?
I will just say one of the lovely things I've heard Tova Feldshuh say to her children is,
Mhm.
"I love you because you breathe."
Yeah.
And I didn't get that message. I had two incredibly loving parents, but I didn't get the message, "I love you because you breathe." My mom weighed 112 pounds her entire life. She could
Mhm.
fit into her wedding dress on her 50th wedding anniversary.
Yeah.
So I did learn that you are lovable because you're thin.
Yeah.
And so we didn't really talk about it, but the only time I was ever on camera as a 10-year-old with all those union cards was modeling husky clothes. So
Right.
I knew at a young age there was something wrong with my something.
Yes.
I was fat shamed, I guess they would call it, in
The
an
seed was
innocent way.
planted that
The seed was
there was
planted.
something not good there. Yeah.
And you know, a very telling thing that I heard when I was at the Cleveland Clinic, because my parents asked, "How did this happen with the food?" And the doctor said it could have been alcohol, it could have been drugs, it could have been drinking, it could have been anything.
Sure.
And it just, in his case, it's food. What they neglected to say was, if
What they forgot to warn you about.
if he doesn't fix it in here and in here, it will become all
Yeah,
of these things, because you know, I'd arrest one thing and it would pop up as another. It
that's
was, you
right.
know, kind of a whack-a-mole through my life. You know, once I arrested the eating disorder, it popped up with an alcohol dependence, and once I
Yes.
arrested the alcohol, it popped up as a drug addiction. So um, you know, all of that was to answer your question of how it was when I got to New York. It was terrifying,
Yeah, sure.
absolutely
Of course.
terrifying. And
And
of course, New York in 1979, you know, quick snapshot, was the hookers on every corner, and the adult film stores all, and movie theaters all up 8th Avenue. And to get to my acting classes, we walked down 42nd Street to 9th Avenue,
yeah.
which is now, you know, it's Theater Row and it's Disney and it's
Oh,
wonderful. But back
totally different.
then, If you
Yeah.
weren't depressed by the time you got off the train at Times Square, you were by the time you got to class.
No,
So
I was
it
in high
was,
school I have one sister 10 years my senior, and she was living on St. Mark's between First and Avenue A in 1980.
and she
And
said,
I
yeah,
used to take the bus in from New Jersey because my parents had no clue. All they knew was the Upper East Side. And they had no idea what I was walking through, that I was stepping over the junkies in her foyer, to get to her apartment. So I get it. Also, I do want to say that our parents, which I imagine our parents are of the same generation, um, they did define themselves by how you'd say, well, how is he? Oh, he's fit and trim. That
mm,
was the first thing, not he's a brilliant actor or he's a brilliant, oh, he's so fit and trim. It was conditioning. And we
yeah,
heard it
it's,
as young people. And for empathetic and especially for artists, but creative people who take it on, you take it on. So I really do understand that. Um,
yeah. And I think of, for me, the trauma, and I'll use that word, of moving 5 times while I was growing up, because it was a time where there weren't cell phones. There was long distance, and you had to wait till after 11 to, to the prices went down. And there
yeah,
wasn't social media, there wasn't Facebook. When I left my friends in high school, they were gone.
yeah,
And my dad even said, out of sight, out of mind. So when I think, that's me looking at it from my vantage point. When I think of what my parents had to do to bring 3 children to
oh,
three
yeah,
different cities and to reinvent the life, they were doing the absolute best they could, and they did it beautifully. I look back now and I
exactly.
just think, they were heroes. But there were blind spots, and I've got my blind spots.
Sure, we all do, and as you say, we're doing the best they could. And I think about, so you went back to NYU and finished with the proverbial emotional band-aid put on what had been wrong. And then I want to know when you met your Sarah Louise Lazarus, your director, and got into Cabaret.
Is such a pivotal point. And if there are young people listening, this would be the most important thing to hear. So I was 26, I believe, and working as a room service waiter at the Regents. No, I think I was still a room service waiter, yes, I was. It was a room service waiter at the Regency Hotel and finishing my classes. And I had met Alex Rybeck. Um, he in 1983, while I was still at NYU, I got the itch, which I scratched,
Yeah.
to do my own cabaret show. You saw that I loved the Music Man.
Yes.
Loving Barbara Cook's voice led me to the discovery of her reinvention as a cabaret artist and her album As of Today,
Yeah.
which showed me that there were other ways to perform. That was the first time Barbara Cook was the first time I'd ever seen anyone create the magic that I experienced in a theater piece as a one-person show. So I
Yeah.
knew I wanted to do that or try that. And I
Mhm.
found Alex Rybeck when I was in 1983. So I was 24, and I just got incredibly lucky. I knew that with Barbara Cook, I knew as a teenager that it was Wally Harper, her music director,
Yes.
that came up with these arrangements,
That's right.
who took songs that were standards but put them into her voice,
That's right.
and did things with melodies and tempo and textures that were wonderful surprises, reinventing songs and making them definitively her own.
Yeah.
So that's what I was looking for, was my own Wally Harper, and I found Alex Rybeck, and we are celebrating our 40th year, still working together.
That is just incredible.
It
Yeah.
really is.
To find a music director, I mean, look, there's no shortage of wonderful musicians in New York, and there are so many great piano players and music directors. But when you find one who sort of understands the essence of you and grows with you and hears your concept and can musically, it is a really symbiotic
It
relationship.
is.
And that is amazing that you and Alex have that. It's
It
wonderful.
is. I mean, I
Music
would liken it today to
connects.
putting your photo into a good filter. I go to him
Abs-
with the ideas and what I'm thinking and where I think I am when I'm singing this song and who I think I'm singing to and the time of day. And he puts it through this musical filter that comes out um,
Right.
as if if I could do that, that's what I'm going to. So yes, so I had done my first show with Alex, and we had had a few subsequent bookings, and then I got depressed, and I was then working as a houseboy for a wonderful entertainer named Phyllis McGuire of the McGuire Sisters.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah.
And watching these three ladies who were at the time in their 50s have this big comeback, and watching how hard they worked inspired me. I realized that it's just hard work and tenacity. So I called Alex and said, I want to sing again, but I'm terrified. And he said, I am playing for a woman's class. Her name is Sarah Louise Lazarus. And I've never played for a class where I see these kind of transformations when students are working. It's a warm, trusting and space that she creates, and I highly recommend it. So I went in and sang for Sarah. I went in and took her class. I signed up for it. And of course, the thing with any master class, you almost learn more watching other singers.
Yes.
Because by the time it was my turn to get up, I had already seen how lovingly she speaks to artists, which is how I need to hear it. Some people need to hear it a different way. But I need to know that I'm safe in order to take a risk. And I need to have some affirmation that something that I'm doing is on the right path. As one of my friends says, you need to hear, anyone needs to hear 10 things they're doing right before they can hear a correction or an adjustment. So Sarah, one of the wonderful things I saw her say to the singer right before me is, that's wonderful what you're doing. And I would never ask you not to do that. And as you know, it works for you because you're getting cast in shows doing that. So let's just put it here, and it's always here. You can go right back to doing it that way. But tonight, what if we try doing this? And I thought, well, I feel safe to get up for anyone who's going to talk to me that way.
Do that. Yeah.
I got up there with Sarah, and I sang from Funny Lady a song called If I Love Again. And when I finished, she said, it's beautiful, but how dare you? How dare you sing about ever loving again when you look like you're 19?
Yes.
And we all laughed. And she said, the first task of a singer is to look at the lyric and make sure that you are the reliable, believable narrator for the lyric. So that was an aha moment. I hate to tell you that I was 27 and that had not really occurred to me.
Oh, I don't think that's old at all, considering how you can hear a beautiful, beautiful singer. And this is actually a segue into a clip. You could not have given me a better segue, but I have heard many, many beautiful singers where the lights are on, but nobody is home in terms of what it is that they're saying. I have never, ever felt that way about you. In fact, I think putting the lyric first is what distinguishes a great cabaret singer from a good one. And I have found, I watched this clip the other night, and I got very choked up because there was not a single moment where I felt like this very old standard lyric was not yours. This is Jeff Harnar.
I've got you under my skin. I've got you deep in the heart of me. So deep in my heart, you're really a part of me. I've got you under my skin. I've tried so not to give in. I've said to myself, this affair never will go so well. But why should I try to resist when, darling, I know so well I've got what might, for the sake of having you near, in spite of a warning voice that comes in the night and repeats in my ear. Don't you know, little fool, you never can win. Use your mentality. Wake up to reality. But each time I do, just the thought of you makes me stop before I begin. 'Cause I've got you under my skin. I've got you under my skin.
If you're just joining us, this is the Sunday Session series, and I'm Carolyn Montgomery hosting our brilliant guest today, Jeff Harnar. In June of this year, he released his album, I Know Things Now, My Life in Stephen Sondheim's Words, on PS Classics. And we are going to be discussing his upcoming shows at the Laurie Beechman Theater and this amazing and wonderful recordings. Jeff Harnar. It is any minute now. There we go. I'm figuring out, I do it all myself, and I've had a couple of people tell me that that they're like, you can get somebody else to work the keyboard, and I'm like, no. I'll just make mistakes and keep making them until I finally hear it, as we've been discussing, and have somebody else take over that's more qualified.
You're a saloon singer. We are a self-contained act. We're used to having to do it all.
Exactly. I'll do it myself. All right. I Know Things Now. My Life in Stephen Sondheim's Words. I want to tell you that I find it incredibly poignant that I've heard in other interviews you say that you stayed away from Stephen Sondheim. You sort of shied away from Stephen Sondheim for a while. Tell me about that.
Terror. It was terror of Stephen Sondheim.
Yeah.
Till, no, I didn't. I mean, I performed a couple of his songs. In particular, What More Do I Need is one that I would sing when asked to sing Sondheim. But beyond that, I really believed his music belonged in the shows for which they were written, or at least in the hands of singers with incredible vocal skill, which I just always knelt at the shrine of Broadway voices and other singers who really could scale the heights of what his songs demand. So it wasn't until I got sober that I actually, in my sobriety, was able to actually look at the lyrics and realize that the lyrics are what I care about most, and the lyrics are extraordinary.
Absolutely. And
as cabaret singers, that's the primary thing, is that we have text to speak. The songs, the lyrics of the songs are the whole thing. It's, a pretty voice will get you through a song or two, but after that, I better have something to say. And nobody quite expresses the human condition the way Sondheim does, with great wit and intelligence and humor and profound lyrics.
And a big raw aching nerve sometimes, musically and lyrically, to the point where if you are a person that is contained and wanting to at least keep a certain facade or whatever of decorum, Sondheim's not it. Sondheim is, and I hear, and I cannot wait to listen more. I've listened to this recording easily 4 times all the way through. I'm coming to the show on the 25th of September. Jeff is going to be doing this show at the Laurie Beechman Theater on September 18th at 7 o'clock and September 25th. And you best get your tickets now. You're also doing it actually in North Carolina, in Charlotte, North Carolina on the 20th. And I have a Carolinian watching this. So go.
if you come, whoever you are, please come up and say you saw me here.
Yeah, you can say
Uh,
Carolyn Montgomery sent you, and then he'll run in the other direction. Run away!
no, I won't. The 25th performance at the Laurie Beecham Theater is at 4 p.m. That is a matinee for anyone who needs an earlier hour of the day.
Yeah.
And I can't wait to do that.
Oh, it's going to be.
I adore this show because it is the most authentic. Stephen Sondheim's lyrics have given me the courage to be as authentic as I have ever been in a performance. I will say, though, it's interesting you picked Cole Porter because he would be my second favorite. Because if you look at it, the song "I Got You Under My Skin" is an "I Love You" song.
Yes.
Isn't it fascinating?
Yes.
How twisted and tortured and complicated it is for that narrator to be expressing the feeling. And as anyone who has been smitten knows, it's not just "I love you, I love you, I love you." It's
You're right.
So Cole Porter is another great source for finding. I mean, he did write, of course, the very fun, witty patter songs, but you can also find what is this thing called love? Wonderful songs that just go right to the heart of the matter.
Absolutely.
Larry Hart, too. Speaking of Hart, Larry Hart is another great source.
Yeah. Well, and Cole Porter mingled passion and loneliness so perfectly. And I remember, when I'm rehearsing Cole Porter songs, it takes me a while to get through them because the lyric is so. You hear this sort of unrequited, "I love you, I love you, I love you," and I know that I'm not being loved back, and that's an intense and incredible thing to bring out in the music. So it does feel like this recording, "I Know Things Now," first of all, so aptly named. It's the culmination of a lot of work, life work, musical work.
Well, let's just say at age 63. Well, my last album was 17 years ago, and it was called "Dancing in the Dark." The first clue. And I'm very proud of it. But it really
can be from dancing in the dark to "I Know Things Now."
My first album is the 1959 Broadway Songbook, which is all the songs that you could have heard in New York the year I was born.
Right.
And so now we're at the age 63 where it's "I Know Things Now." So there is kind of a continuity there. And it's not that there's anything bad about the Dancing in the Dark album.
No.
It just has to do with the metaphor of how New York is a dance, being in New York, being in life, being awake.
Right.
Sleep is my favorite. Naps are my new happy hour. But anytime you're conscious, you're dancing in the dark.
There you go. Well, I have something to suggest to you, and I'd just be curious to know your thoughts on it, because this occurred to me just in this moment. And that is that women of a certain age in cabaret that really have a great story to tell and put it across in their own authentic and unique way, they have the best careers. If you look at the women that Julie Wilson, Margaret Whiting, look at women now, Marilyn May. I mean, first of all, Marilyn May is a brilliant singer for any age. She's 94, but she could be 64. And if she delivers a song like that, it's brilliant. However, women have stories to tell. And I thought about it and I thought, now you don't see a whole lot of men over the age of 60 in cabaret getting up and telling their story. Is that because it wasn't received well to be a vulnerable man telling your story?
I can only speak for myself, and I don't know that if I were 63 in 1993, if I would have had the courage to stand up and do this. I mean, I was a gay man then, and I knew it, and anyone who knew me knew it, but I didn't stand up on stage and say it.
Yeah.
And there was one time where the Blade in Washington, D.C. wanted to do an interview with me. And the reason they did was because I was an openly gay man. And I said, well, that's fine, but you can't include that in the article. And they said, well, then we're not going to interview you.
Right. Yeah,
So it just was, it was, I mean, I was, so the world has evolved along with my own understanding of my comfort in my own skin.
And to me, yeah, that seems like, I think And I've often said this, that men need a movement. I think that the whole concept of toxic masculinity, which has gotten out there and made it very unpopular for a man to get up on stage and express anything but lust for a woman, or sadness at losing said woman, or the vulnerability and doubt and sadness, and love for another man. Those have not been things that have been readily accepted. It's gonna, I think we could be ushering in a whole new age of cabaret, and I hope so. I hope so, because men have their stories too, and I personally, after particularly listening to I Know Things Now, I want more. So that's very exciting. Now, my students, I have to do this. They have questions for you. Our education participants have questions for you, and they want to know. Oh, and okay, I have several things for you, Jeff. You're here for a bit. Um, do you have a favorite food or type of cuisine?
Only because she's watching. Anything Phyllis Kinsler cooks.
Excellent. Phyllis Kinsler, you shout out to your cooking. There you go.
But I do get asked often if I eat before I perform, and I can't imagine not eating before I perform, because to me, feeling hungry is the feeling of stage fright. That's the last thing I want to be thinking about on stage, is that my stomach is grumbling or that I don't feel grounded. And frankly, if I could eat on stage during the show, I probably would. No, but I'm mindful about what I eat. But it is really important to be fed and watered before you get up and perform, just so that your focus can be on what it needs to be.
I think that's very true. I used to feed my whole band before we got up to go, and I found that they were just happier. They just felt better, and I would feed them a good, healthy meal so they wouldn't go out to 42nd Street and buy the cheap burrito and feel terrible. I would do it at the Beachman before Visible Phoenix. We had family meal.
When I was doing my show on cruise ships, we'll do the show twice in a night sometimes, and I would say to the band, please don't go to the bar between the shows. I'll take you to the bar after.
Exactly.
But please, I want the same tempos at the late show.
Yes, exactly. Let's all just stay compos mentis for the show. There's a question for you that I'm curious. So what do you, because nobody looks better in a suit. You're a beautifully dressed guy. And do you work out? Do you do anything to stay fit and healthy for your career?
I do. When people ask me how I memorize lyrics, I literally run them, which means I go to the gym and I will learn them, a sentence at a time as I'm running, because somehow it's in my head that that is literally muscle memory if I'm able to do it that way. But yeah, I do. I do go to the gym. Being healthy is spiritual, it's physical, it's mental, it's
balance, isn't it?
All balance. And even if it's just walking, and New York City is such a great place to walk. That was my exercise today. It was a good walk.
Yeah, excellent. And do you have a pet?
I am only because she's here. I have Phyllis Kinsler.
Phyllis Kinsler.
Phyllis Kinsler's cat Bashert, and
Bashert. Oh, yes. I love it.
So for people who love pets, I live in a no pet building. And so my friends gift me with, I also have a stuffed dog named Lucy that's modeled after the dog Lucy that I love. So what I do for pets, because I can't have them in this building, is I go, and during the summer virtually daily, I go to Central Park, to Turtle Pond, and I bring little treats. And the turtles, literally, when they see me coming, start walking out of the rock. I sit down and they climb up on my lap and take the treats and go one at a time. They stand in a line, and
that is hilarious. And I know exactly where you're talking about. And they all come up to sun themselves.
Yes,
with their necks sticking out. If you had a cat named Bashert, it would be a problem with the neighbors hearing if you were like having to say, "Bish, get off the couch," or "Bish, don't eat that." People say, "What is she calling that animal?" That's very funny. Here's another one, which is very common question that these kids ask. Did you have, or did you ever want children?
Well, I okay, this may sound terrible, like I'm not a
Oh, no,
nurturing
no, no, no,
soul,
no, no bad
but
answers.
I never had that desire. And I liken it to the fact that when I was 5 and went to visit my Aunt Fran, who lived here in Manhattan, she was my great aunt, and she was the fashion editor of 17 magazine, and she lived in
Wow.
Murray.
Mhm.
The first time I saw an apartment building, I thought, I never want a house. I never want to mow lawns. I never want to clean the gutters. I never want to change all
So,
the things I watched my dad do. I was just like, why doesn't everyone want to live in a place where you take an elevator and you have a view
yeah.
and someone else deals with? So I just never had that thing that said I want children. What I will say is the people that I direct and students that I work with, I feel, and my fellows in sobriety, I've talked about how we give it back. So they're called sponsees, and I'm working with 10
Right.
men and women right now to help keep them sober a day at a time. So I have a lot of nurturing love in my life and
Mhm.
show up. But the role of parent, I I do not have. I was not.
Which is so viable. I mean, I remember saying to somebody, it is a very viable choice not to want to have children. It was a couple that had come to me saying, we're both 37. We love going skiing together. We have wonderful vacations. We don't think we want to have children. And I thought, why are you coming to me? And I said, don't have children. Absolutely. Go live your lives. It is a viable thing. Having kids
It's
is hard. And
it's the
you
same thing.
care for people.
If you want music in your life as a performer, then that has to really be a calling.
Yeah.
And I think the same thing about parenting. It
Yes,
just really needs
exactly.
to be a calling because
It's one of life's many choices, and there are so many choices we can make, and so and then the very last question that I always ask of my guests is, what do you feel in your career has served you well, and also what do you feel has not served you very well in retrospect? Broad question.
well, I guess until I got sober, I would say tenacity has served me well. Just sticking with it,
Yep.
even through bad times. There's a lot to be said by getting to where I am just at 63. All of a sudden, you're in kind of a different bucket.
Yep.
And like you were talking about the people who become, who have third acts that are, Julie Wilson was a very different performer in her 20s than she was in her
Yes.
60s,
Absolutely.
and I know which one I'd rather buy a ticket to see.
Yeah.
So there's that, but I will say, and this nothing to my younger self, no shade cast here, but when I got sober, one of the things we learn is two words: service and gratitude. Now, I was 51 before I ever understood the word service as giving without expecting anything in return. What can I bring to rather than get from?
Yep.
And that was not my agenda as a performer until I turned 51. So it serves me very well, especially when I'm terrified. If there's an audience or a venue or
Yes.
material that's new, I will sit there and say, how can I be of service here? Who am I of service to? I am of service to this audience. I'm of service to the man who wrote or the woman who wrote this music or these lyrics. I am of service to this venue where I'm performing. It is my job to come here and be part of a community, even if I only know them for a night. I am here to bring to, and it takes the pressure off of me feeling like I have to walk in with all the answers. It's all about me. What am I going to get out of this? If I can sing my Sondheim show, I know things now, and somebody hears these lyrics in a way they've never heard them before, or hears their story in them, then I have been of service with my music. And that's a different agenda than I ever had in my young life. I don't know if I could have heard it when I was younger. I don't know that I would have understood it. And then circling back to how you started this program is gratitude,
Yeah.
profound gratitude. I am humbled to admit I did not have until I got sober. Just the fact to wake up sober and, well, for me to wake up sober and healthy, and that I've slept. The gift of waking up is a real gift. And the fact that I get to work with the people that I do is a real gift. The wonderful thing about being a self-contained cabaret artist is we get to pick
Yes.
who, we're not auditioning for this role. I get to pick who my music director is. I get to pick who my director is.
That's right.
This team is of my choice. And so, choose wisely and, choose the best. Choose the
Yeah.
ones who are the best teachers that create joy. If it's not joyful, don't do it. Why would we do it?
Yes.
So,
Well, I'm feeling as though everything that you just said is a wonderful place to end this interview, because it doesn't get any more important than that. I'm feeling as though you come at a career in the arts. You've got the same voice and you have the same abilities, but you have changed your mind about things that have it's an evolution of getting closer and closer and closer to what's important: service and gratitude. And even though the change may be imperceptible to other people, it's not when it comes to your art. When in a show, I think that you bring something to that. The recording that I listen to, and I know things now, is an absolutely soulful, spiritually realized recording. And I want everyone who's watching this to hear it. I want you to go buy it on Amazon. You can get it. It's called I Know Things Now.
could I just share one
Yes.
last tool
Yes.
that I got from Sarah Louise
Of
Lazarus
course. Yeah.
that changed my life, and maybe a young person will hear it, is the secret is in the lyrics. If I choose a lyric that I'm the reliable, believable narrator, look at the punctuation, look at complete sentences, to take it away from the music and do it as a monologue and find the sense of it as a monologue, because that will inform the phrasing and the interpretation, how I want to sing it. It's what Sarah said, and I heard it loud and clear at age 27, was I was always thinking, this is a Frank Sinatra song, this is a Judy Garland song. But if I take a lyric and personalize it, thoroughly, then it is definitively my version. And that's the bullseye, is to be definitively my own. It may not, you may have heard better versions of it. I can never, what other people think of me is none of my business. But what I do want to think of at the end of the day is that I brought myself to it. So I really didn't understand that before. And one other thing is, there are a lot of awards out there that you can win. And just to bring Phyllis Kinsler's name into it one more time, this is a Jeff Harnar bobblehead.
No way. You got a Jeff.
So if you stick with it till you're 63, you too might have a
Get
bobblehead.
your own bobblehead. Phyllis Kinsler, you have pets and you make bobbleheads of awesome people. That's incredible. You have arrived. Jeff Harnar, thank you so much.
I will, and also read Cabaret Scenes.
How about that? I have my copy. Yeah.
If you join the American Songbook Association, you get a subscription to this magazine. It covers what's going on all over the country, in London. Great articles like this one about Karen Akers, who is one of those people who we've watched morph into this astonishing thing that she is now, from the astonishing Broadway actress and singer that she was. That magazine is just so helpful to know who's performing and where are the venues.
And you have always been a major supporter of our magazine and this association. So we are grateful. We're grateful for you. I will see you on the 25th. Everybody else, get tickets for either the 17th or the 25th at the Laurie Beachman Theater. And you Carolinians, he's at the 20th, on the 20th at the Middle City Jazz. Yeah. All right. Jeff, thank you. This has been a pleasure. It's a wonderful hour. Thank you. And he covered it for me. If you're not already a member, please go ahead and click on our website and become a member of the American Songbook Association, and you get Cabaret Scenes, an entire year's subscription as a benefit of membership. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm Carolyn Montgomery for the American Songbook Association. Good night.